SG, good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
So we're currently here in Batumi, Georgia. Just this morning you did an open discussion with some of the cadets in Georgia, wrapping up the Day of the Seafarer. My first question to you is, what does a My Harassment-Free ship look like?
Thank you, and pleased to have you here in Georgia with me as well. When you look at the way that we rolled out that campaign, it immediately creates the awareness of a real situation that is being experienced on ships. Now, we know that harassment, including sexual harassment, is nothing new in the work environment around the world.
Yeah.
It's the reason why there's so many campaigns and awareness in this respect. But we don't seem to be paying the same attention on board the ships. A very confined space where anything can happen. What it's actually showing is that people is interested to know more about it, that people can share the experiences, seafarers, that they know that they're not alone when those cases take place, unfortunately, and that they can speak up. And that was one of the main objectives for this campaign, to get the awareness out there and to connect with different seafarers and among themselves. Because that's another way to actually improve on this, is how the companies can look after the seafarers better, how can they provide and should provide assistance when this happens, and for the seafarers to know that they are not alone, and that all the seafarers are also going through this, and by sharing those experiences we can make the work environment a better place.
And we also know that this campaign is leading up to some changes that are happening in January regarding the STCW. There is going to be some mandatory training for seafarers around bullying and harassment at sea. How do we look past just compliance though? How do we sort of build a My Harassment-Free ship into the culture on board a vessel?
The best way, again, is sharing all the experience on the implementation of the mandatory regulations. They're going to help, for sure, but they're not the ultimate solution. And the more we talked about it, the more that we bring down the stigma that is something, first, that doesn't happen, or second, that is taboo or that we shouldn't share with anyone. And that's another objective of the campaign. Let's keep it alive. Let's find solutions to this situation. Let's acknowledge, first of all, that it is happening, that is a problem, and that we have to kill it. And by tackling through the campaign, we actually now getting a lot more of the stakeholders involved and engaged with it.
I agree. Let's talk about Georgia. You're here currently, I believe it's your first time in
It's my first time in Georgia.
What's your perspective been over the last 2 days since you've been here?
There's a lot of input and objectives in enhancing the maritime sector in Georgia. We know that it's a very important country when it comes to seafarers. They have over 18,000 seafarers from this country operating and sailing around the world, and it's increasing. And whenever we talked about the shortage of qualified seafarers, we just have to look at countries like Georgia, where there is actually a lot of focus to enhance the maritime domain, to increase the participation of young people into this sector. I heard about digitalization. It's something that Georgia is very much investing in, and we'll see it into their implementation of the maritime single window last year. A very successful implementation that I asked them to share their experience with us, because it's going to help us to assist other countries. And then is the development of the port infrastructure. And of course, a great opportunity for them to take up on the new measures and the new actions that we are taking in relation to decarbonization and protection of the environment as they develop and expand the ports. They were sharing with me about a deep sea port project, and of course, immediately what comes to mind is looked into the regulations that are coming up on the safety aspect, automation, and the environment, and start implementing that through the development of the port. Because right away, sorry to interrupt,
please.
Because right away, they start gaining. There is an advantage that they will actually have when it comes to the sustainability of shipping.
But what do you think it is about this region? You know, you have Ukraine, Odessa, you have Turkey, you have Georgia here. These are major labour markets for seafarers. Why do you think this area is so popular for maritime as a career?
Historically, it's a maritime location. We've seen that trade, shipping trade, has gone on for centuries in this part of the world. They were explaining to me here in Georgia their maritime tradition and how proud they are. And it's also a very interesting approach that, or perspective that people don't really see. You look at the Black Sea, but the Black Sea connects not just internally, but immediately is with Europe and Asia. So it's a gateway. And that also provides that opportunity for the countries here and the population to immediately see some of the benefits of shipping. Because it's a career like no other. It will bring you closest to new countries, new cultures, new people. And as I always said, once you've been working on board a ship, you create that leadership and that problem-solving mentality that can take you far anywhere else in the world.
I totally agree. I want to talk about people, specifically young people. When I first started coming to the IMO and listening to you speak, it's become abundantly apparent that people is a very important part of your methodology. This morning, when we were at the lecture, a lot of the young cadets had a lot of questions for you. It went on for a very long time, and some of those questions were quite difficult questions. There was one that one of the guys pointed your way around. Whether or not diversity means we have to sacrifice operational efficiency, and I thought you answered it very well. They were also talking about geopolitics, very complex situations. But what does that make you feel about the next generation, how they're thinking before they eventually start their careers?
Well, I said from the beginning that I wanted to break them all into what it's like to be a Secretary General. I remain open, transparent, and approachable, because it's also the perspective and the objectives that I have for the industry and IMO as a whole. And one of the best parts of my job, I've always said it, is to have that interaction with people, because we need to listen. We need to learn from our customers. The seafarers of the future are our customers, and we need to be aware of what the concerns are if we are serious about tackling those concerns and attracting new people to this incredible career. And that's why for me there's no such thing as a difficult question. I may not have the answer, or I may not be giving them the answer that they may be expecting, but the fact that they know that I'm aware and I know that they are expecting more from us, it just gives me that additional drive to go back to IMO, talk to the member states, all the stakeholders, intergovernmental organizations, non-governmental organizations, and just make them aware of the expectations of the people out there.
Yeah.
So immediately we start putting actions into the statements. We say that we're going to look better as the seafarers. Listening to them, the concerns, is a way for us to address them. The fact that we're not investing enough on seafarers, again, the same thing. And that we have a lot of regulations at IMO that takes time away from the seafarers themselves to actually do the seafaring job.
Yeah.
And that when we talk about issues or topics like diversity, that we have a way to go. But it's not until we face those questions and have what some people may call difficult conversations that we will be able to actually tackle down those barriers and bring them down.
And that leads me nicely to my final question, which is, as we wrap up Day of the Seafarer 2025, what do you think we should focus on in 2026? I know a lot of people have thrown some ideas your way. There are some big key words rolling around: fair wages, criminalisation. One gentleman even earlier on mentioned about how external pressure is affecting seafarers, and sometimes that can lead to accidents happening on board. There's lots of areas I know that we could focus, but do you have any ideas of what kind of subjects we should focus future Day of the Seafarer themes around?
We will have several Days of the Seafarers. What I would like to see is how we connect a successful campaign that we have this year that is about the seafarers, and in particularly the free spirit that we expect from them to have on board, that they're free from harassment, and how we can connect that to other issues that continue to come up, like the well-being, the health and well-being of the seafarers, areas where IMO can actually work further. When we talked about fatigue and the hours of rest, all that can lead very nicely into the work that we are doing this year. Plus, next year, we are expecting the Council to agree with us that the International Day for Maritime, or the International Maritime Day, will be most likely surrounding the area of implementation of the IMO instruments. With the revision of the STCW Convention, I think we're going to throw a few ideas how we link the harassment-free campaign, harassment-free ship campaign, into some of the other aspects, and maybe partner with organizations like the International Labour Organizations when it comes to the social ideas or topics that were actually thrown at us as well.
Very exciting. And finally, what message do you have for the next generation of seafarers coming through? When we did a podcast the other week, you had a very nice closing statement about why someone should consider a career at sea. But for those seafarers right now that are listening to this interview perhaps, what message do you have for them?
So we have challenges right now. Geopolitics, we have to address the environment, increased number of casualties when it comes to accidents. But we are tackling all that. Shipping is an incredible career, it's an incredible sector that has taken the lead when it comes to increase and enhance its safety records as well as its green credentials. It's a career where there are many opportunities. When you start in one place as seafarers and you can diversify it in several areas that connect this incredible and very global sector. Situations may be challenging every now and then, but we're always going to face challenges. So for me is to recognize that shipping always adapts, that we do listen, that we are resilient, and things will get better. So don't walk away from shipping. This is a sector that is listening to the younger generation, that wants to engage more, and we need to be ready and adapt ourselves to what the expectations of the future are. And that's some of the areas that I want the organization to keep focusing on.
Thank you, SG.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Perfect.
That's it?
Yep, that's it.